Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch or any watch you see here, they're all in stock. This is Weekday Watches and we're doing an inventory show on a school night. So if you like what you see, reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing details. We're starting with a launch from 2023 from Vacheron Constantin. This is the Overseas Moon Phase Retrograde date, taking a long-running Vacheron complication tandem and adding it to the sports watch series. The company's made a romantic version of a very versatile watch. So 41 millimeters in steel, it's 10.7 millimeters thick, and it has a screw-down crown with a 50-meter rating. So you can actually surface swim this watch. It doesn't lose its sports watch credentials. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, it wears really nicely, comfortable, not too broad. I'd recommend it for a wrist my size or larger, so 16 centimeters circumference and up, and it's absolutely flat enough to fit under a cuff. The watch features a dial that's a combination of a metallic base with a layer of, or several layers, I should say, of clear and blue translucent lacquer. There is a quick set system for the date. If you want to play with the retrograde, you can easily do so. And when you turn it in the opposite direction, it quick sets the moon. Automatic winding, it's got a 40-hour power reserve. It does have a hacking function, even though it does not have a seconds display. You can see this features the latest Vacheron bracelet and quick release system, which is easier to use than the prior one. And it uses a slightly different clasp design than previous versions of the third generation Overseas, but the level of quality and features exactly the same. You can see the intricacy of the decoration on this hand-finished steel bracelet. Note, on both sides, every single link is removable. Now, we even have an intermediate sized link in case you find yourself in between sizes, as well as a sleeved 1.5 millimeter tool-free adjustment system with one mechanism on each side of the clasp so you can really fine-tune. The watch comes with two straps, one in leather, one in rubber, and you will be able to rapidly retrofit with this quick release system. Automatic winding, 5-position adjustment, Geneva hallmark finishing on this Vacheron Constantin manufacture movement, which you can see is nicely decorated. Stripes, beveling, engine turning. There's some particularly fine detailing on these steel parts off to the side, including satination and then fine bevels on their flanks. 4 different finishes on this 22-karat compass rose rotor with ceramic bearings for high winding efficiency. It is a very, very cool watch. And being a sports watch that is surface swimmable and steel and automatic winding and very versatile in the day, it is also very versatile in the dark. It is well loomed. Jumping from one full bracelet watch to another, albeit at a slightly different price point, back in 2022, Bremont of Britain launched the Supernova, and it's already discontinued. Perhaps the new regime didn't like the idea of a watch built with no compromise in spec and fit, finish, and materials. This is a watch that's not a price point piece. It was described as somewhat expensive at the time, but as I elucidate its qualities, I think you will find that it represents a lot of value. So this is the Midnight Blue Dial variant. It differs from the black and the silver white in that this uses indices and those use numerals. We'll take a quick look. There's absolutely no shortage of luminescence, and the watch is 100 meters water resistant. It has 2 complications on the dial side, depending on how you count your complications. We've got a power reserve indicator, which, like the gauge of an aircraft or a automobile or motorcycle, if you like those, it features a power reserve indicator and then a big date, which is a grande date in the language of watchmaking, French. But this is a British-made watch. You can see it has a double-digit date and a quick-set mechanism. It also features a hacking seconds function, so you can stop that and you can set the watch precisely. You can see the bracelet is substantial. Bremont talked quite a bit about this bracelet when it came out. First, you can see the design is like nothing else. It's not derivative of a Royal Oak or a Nautilus or a Laureato. It's very much its own thing. Of course, Nick and Giles English, the founders of the Bremont brand, English by name, English by nationality, but they are aviation enthusiasts, and they always like to remind you with little cues on the watch here, including the clasp and the propeller, of that aviation heritage. Now, it's a 40 millimeter watch. It's 11.4 millimeters thick as I measure it. It has a DLC mid case. That's the triptych case design that separates the canister for the movement and the dial from the shape of the lugs. And from an ergonomic standpoint, I'd argue it works even better in this format than it does in a round watch, where it kind of seems like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I don't think it changes the ergonomics of the round watch as much, whereas here, you've got a rare integrated bracelet sports watch that actually wears its rated size. It's rated 40, it wears 40. You've got this cushion style bezel atop the case with multiple finishings. You've got polishing, you've got satination, you've got a little bit of a sort of rounded corner profile. It looks really good. It's a watch that has a lot of style and a movement which is a Bremont-built version of a movement called the K1, which was designed and offered by a company called THE Plus out of Switzerland. I believe they're out of BN. So this is a free-sprung, automatic winding, 65-hour power reserve, chronometer certified movement that Bremont purchased from THE Plus, or at least they bought the rights to make it, and that's really what sets this apart. They do actually make it in modified form, so it's not just that they licensed an architecture or bought the movement. They actually fabricate it in a unique finish, materials, colors, some small changes to the architecture to make it distinctive to the Bremont brand. And again, the fact that it is a 65-hour power reserve chronometer with a big date and a power reserve indicator and a free-sprung variable inertia balance. This is what you want to see in an expensive watch, something that's refined and sophisticated. You can also see these red rubber bumpers at the edge. This is a shock-isolated movement, so water-resistant and also very shock-resistant. This is a highly versatile sports watch, and again, already discontinued. Maybe it didn't fit the rhyme scheme of the rebooted Bremont, but I think this is one of the best watches they ever launched. And the blue dial variant with the stick indices is my favorite version of the Supernova. Now, if you want something that is going to, shall we say, sow the seeds of controversy, mention Hublot. Hublot is the ultimate polarizing brand, and they understand what Tom Gale, the former design chief of Chrysler, understood when he created the Dodge Viper, which is that if half the people love it and half the people hate it, that means half the people will buy it. If you only have people who like and dislike, you might wind up with no one buying the product. So Hublot was not afraid of being polarizing. In this model, the Big Bang Tantalum Matte was launched in 2007, only the third year of Big Bang production, when company chief Jean-Claude Biver still had his hands firmly on the wheel. The original MDM Genève Hublot, back when MDM was the company and Hublot was the model, came out in 1980, and it had what was considered to be a little bit of a disruptive combination of a rubber strap on a gold case. Controversial at the time, it became very influential over the years, Hublot maintaining materials fusion as its identity. So here we have rubber, we have a titanium inner case that ensures the 100-meter water resistance, a tantalum outer case, polymer inserts, and then sapphire on front and back. So the watch features tantalum, and people ask me, is tantalum heavier or lighter than gold? And that's the wrong question to ask. The question is whether tantalum is heavier than 18-karat gold, which is what you see on almost all gold watches. And the answer is yes. So this is going to be heavier than gold, and it's got an impressive weight. It doesn't corrode. It is bio-neutral, so you won't have an allergic reaction to it. It won't discolor your skin the way some bronze and silver and even nickel steels will. It is a 44.5, though it doesn't wear that way. I'm going to throw it on my wrist so you get a good sense of it. See how the lugs are angled? See that right there? That mitigates some of the fit issues with a nearly 45 millimeter watch. So if your wrist is my size or larger, you're going to find game on. This is absolutely viable. It's probably not as thick as you think either. Yes, it's big, and no, it's not loom. And you're absolutely correct. It's difficult to tell the time. But this is a shock and awe styling. And that shock and awe styling proposition means this is a timepiece that is all about high style with a reliable tractor caliber inside, which I believe is a La Joux built version of the ageless 7750. Automatic, hacking seconds, 4 hertz, quick set date. We've got a cam function cycler and an oscillating pinion clutch. And no, there is no luminescence because this tantalum toned dial and its blackened indices and numerals are not luminescent. It is 100 meters water resistant, so you can wear it all the time. And you can see see it is not perfect. There's some burnishing on the material, but that just means that you can wear it with greater abandon. You don't have to worry about the first scratch. This is an openly pre-owned watch, and you will find that it is in excellent condition, but not so perfect that you would baby it. And the weight and the feel of tantalum is extraordinary, a real privilege. If you want a sports watch that's a little bit more wearable, this is a brand that also offers you greater legibility of the time, not of the brand, because at H.Moser and C, they've decided that their branding will now be a very subtle, clear lacquer on the dial, almost invisible. But you know what it is, that distinctive fume fade here in cosmic green, now in a 40mm case with an upgraded version of the old HMC 200, the movement now nickel anthracite coated with highly skeletonized bridges and winding rotor to make the works more visible. A 72-hour power reserve, automatic winding, free sprung, 3 Hertz, stop seconds, full balance bridge. Moser makes its hairsprings, balances, and escapements the toughest part of a movement to manufacture. And then the watch is 120 meters water resistant in stainless steel. You can see it has fine coining in the recesses of the case flank. There's no shortage of lume on the dial, with the indices mounted on a Retrograde outboard of the dial proper. And the watch wears quite easily on a rubber strap that is perforated to better vent. You can see it fits beautifully on my wrist. Extremely comfortable, extremely attractive, flatter than you would think, and more compatible with a cuff. It's suitable for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. A lot of people think that the Pioneer at 40 millimeters in steel is exactly what the Pioneer should have been from the beginning. Remember, it debuted back in 2015 with precious metal cases. So I'm going to show you something really neat now that's probably going to blow your mind, if not your retinas. From Bell & Ross, the BRX5. And this, of course, is not just the BRX5, but the BRX5 Green Lume. Now, the watch, well, its core is made of DLC-coated grade 5 titanium, but it features a sheath of fiberglass composite. This material, which is known as LM3D, is made of a quartz fiber matrix with resin impregnated with lume. And so not only the dial, which is true dusk till dawn illuminated, but also the case itself glows like, well, you know the opening sequence of The Simpsons when Homer's fooling around with a nuclear fuel rod? Yeah, it's kind of like that. And you can see that the power reserve indicator is also luminescent, and it's clearly recognizable for what it is, even in the dark. The watch features 100-meter water resistance, a chronometer certification, a 3-day power reserve, a 41-millimeter case that I measure from lug to lug at 49.4, 13.4 thick, and it's got a Tudor Kinesi movement on the back. So you've got a 70-hour reserve, stop seconds, quick set date, power reserve indicator, 4 Hertz, 28 joules, full bridge, free sprung, a very sophisticated movement that elevates this watch horologically. Rubber strap, we've got a double trigger deploying clasp. You can see it is made of metal. Throw the watch on the wrist. It's big, but it doesn't wear heavy because it's made almost entirely of titanium, sapphire, and fiberglass. Taking a look on the wrist, you can see it's big, it's blocky, it's prominent, but that's sort of the idea. As although the BR05 series debuted in 2019 as Bell & Ross's entry to the integrated bracelet sports watch class, it still has a lot of the aesthetic of the 2005 instrument watch that made Bell & Ross internationally famous. Going from a branding effort on Zinn manufactured watches from 1992 to 2002 to a company designing in Paris and building in Switzerland that really puts the style front and center. And that's what you get with this incredible BRX5 Green Lume, one of my favorite watches recently encountered. All right, a little bit smaller, a little bit more artisanal, a little bit more personal. Armand Billard of France built my Team Mosso edition, SB04, but I have to admit that this 38.5mm SB05 has got it all over mine when it comes to intricacy. Here we have a multi-part dial, so there's a frosted base underneath a sapphire crystal that runs around the periphery of the dial. There's a metal chaptering that separates this overlying sapphire on which the numerals and indices are laid from the center dial, which is lathe cut. You can see that there is a mirror for the small seconds and incredibly intricate hands. This is the part of the dial that Armand makes himself. You can see fluted, mirror finished with an overlay of Media Blast. The intricacy is incredible. In case profile, we have satination, polish, and Media Blast. You can see the Sartory Billard logo. Armand, out of France, is an industrial designer by training, but he has taught himself to fabricate many of the components of watch dials. He's also an exceptional designer of watch dials, a craftsman and a designer both. He's got all the gifts. On the back here, you can see we have a big mechanical upgrade from my La Joux G100 automatic. This is a manual wind that is large scale, beautifully decorated, 5-position adjusted with a 90-hour power reserve. It's a manual wind that is a pleasure to wind, and the watch sits nice and light on the wrist in stainless steel. A beautifully artisanal dial. It's very difficult to find any two of these that are made the same way because there are so many options from Armand. If you want a French-made watch with no compromise and a beating Swiss heart, with a design that you may never encounter again, this is a great way to do it. Armand, also a very nice guy. It's great to know your watchmaker, and whether you're the second, third, or fourth owner of this watch, he will want to know where it wound up, and you will be friends because he is a friendly guy. So a very cool way to get into indie watchmaking with a movement that has real horological cred and a case and dial that are extraordinarily handcrafted without breaking the bank. Now what I've got for you is two versions of the same watch for illustrative purposes. This is the Daniel Roth I guess it's the 2147 as they call it. This is the C147. Two sides of the same coin. This is a model, a double pusher chronograph with a manual wind Lemania 2320 movement, launched in 1990, 35 millimeters across. They're only about 40.6 from lug to lug, and they feature the same Daniel Roth Ellipso Curvex case with welded lug construction. These are icons. These are watches made during the period when Daniel Roth was the creative force behind the brand bearing his name. It's been revived, yes, under LVMH, but he is no longer directly involved. These watches are from his own mind and his own hand. They are different. This is an early version, which is why it's a C147. A few things that are different. You can see it's got a 2-part solid gold dial, but it is a monotone dial. And then on the back, like the early versions tend to be, it is a solid case back, whereas here we have the 2147. Now you can see it's what's called the two-tone dial. The two separate pieces are more obviously distinct. So we have this cut piece of gold with the rings and the scales for the time on a tapestry-like vertically striated gold base, but then you turn it over and you can actually see that highly modified Lemania 2320. Daniel Roth always loved to use Lemania base movements in his watches because he did a lot of design work for Lemania during the period when he was also overseeing the watchmaking at Breguet under the Chaumet brothers. So while it looks like it might be an oval movement, it's actually round. Same basic movement that went to the moon as the Omega 321 and went all the way up the high horology pyramid as the Patek Philippe CH2770. Manual wind, column wheel, lateral clutch, exceptional clutch feel, exceptional column wheel feel, overcoil hairspring, 2.5 hertz beat rate, 5-position adjustment. Gorgeous decoration. There was a time when a solid caseback was thought to be a mark of modesty, and it was considered to be the convention. And I will say this watch in my hand is more traditional, an earlier build, and significantly heavier because of the solid gold caseback. Internally, it looks like this. You just have to be confident it's there because finishing back in the day was considered a mark of integrity. It was for the next watchmaker to encounter and appreciate. I would say you could buy either one of these, and there's an argument to be made for either one, earlier and more gold versus later with the display case back. But I would say primarily go by the dial. They're mechanically identical. They're the same dimension. I happen to like the two-tone, two-piece dial over the monotone two-piece dial. So that is just my thought. Remember, these were rare, built at small volumes by an artisanal constructor, and these are considered to be the equivalent of brass movement FP Journes. Just as those early brass movement Journes are the most collectible, the Daniel Roth watches made when he ran the company, before Hourglass, before Bulgari, before LVMH, they are considered to be the most collectible. Both of these ace that test. Now finally, I've got something that I've wanted to present for years, but it has been years since I first encountered the work of the modern Chopard-spawned Ferdinand Berthoud company, and now I finally have one of these watches in my hand to show to you. You're looking at the Ferdinand Berthoud FB2 RSM. So, of course, the movement is the highlight of this watch, but at Ferdinand Berthoud, the FB series refers to the case, not necessarily the movement or the model. So FB1 is the original lugless octagon. FB2 is this, a more traditional round lugged case. So this watch came out in 2022, and there were several different variants, several different dials, several different case metals, and of course you had the choice between lugged and lugless cases, meaning though 20 movements were made, there are far fewer of any individual variant of this watch than the bare 20 movement number suggests. So the watch is large but not huge, 44 millimeters in diameter, 14.6 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 51.4 millimeters in yellow gold. It's 22 millimeters between the lugs. You can see that the strap features a little bit of a countersink into the flank of the watch that creates a much more integrated look. There's no daylight showing, and there's no impediment to the motion of the strap. Taking a look at the buckle, you can see it's large and it's Ferdinand Berthoud branded, but it's fairly simple, matching yellow gold. The only feature that I want to shout out is the fact that it does have what I call an elevated bridge, where you could see the anchors on each side, but then the bridge is elevated above them, so the strap can move in just like a garage, so it doesn't stack up, it stays relatively thin on the wrist. The strap is incredibly grand. As you can see, large rectangular symmetrical scale alligator leather, always indicative of the finest cut of the animal and very expensive. Semi-gloss finish here, dark brown, but look in profile. It's actually two folded edge straps that have been stitched together, so it's alligator on both sides. Very expensive, very durable, likely to last years, and very laborious strap to create, albeit for a watch that is absolutely worth every penny invested. The strap is impressive, the case even more so. As you can see, it features a remarkable amount of external hardware, polish and satin, both, a concave bezel, a dramatically domed and cambered crystal, almost like a bubble, the FB logo on a knurled crown, and even, you can see with all this hardware attaching the external components, it's got the look of a vintage marine chronometer clock built up for use on deck, and that is the inspiration for this watch. We'll go a little bit deeper in a moment, but I want to show you, let's get a little bit closer to my light source here, that you have a lateral viewport allowing you to see the chain, the fusee chain, barrel, fusee, and chain, and those innumerable little links in this tiny chain. Really, the reason this movement has an astonishing 1,169 parts. So, of course, Ferdinand Berthoud is long dead, and the brand was long defunct. A famous 18th century constructor of precision chronometers and marine navigation clocks, his name was resurrected by Carl Friedrich Schäufele, the owner and chief of Chopard. So if you can think of Chopard and then Louis-Ulysse Chopard, somewhat above that, LUC series, and then above that, Ferdinand Berthoud. And you can see on the dial, it is a chronometer, and the company is now based out of Val de Travers in Switzerland. This watch is exhaustively detailed and engineered. Let's start with the basics. The dial. This is not number 8. That number 8 refers to the marine navigation clock number 8 created by the namesake right around 1768 in Paris. So you have number 8, like the rest of the text, freehand engraved onto this solid gold dial, and then a very subtle sort of figure 8 design for the aperture, revealing the deadbeat second mechanism. We're going to stick with this for a moment, stay on the dial side. So you've got this media blasted, and then if you get very close, you can see also micro-beveled solid gold dial with freehand engraving, and it actually forms the basis for the bridge supporting the minute display. You've got a regulator dial, so we have deadbeat seconds, minutes, and then a sapphire disc with scrolling hours that sits on top of a white backing plate, so you can see the silhouetted hours scrolling by. The hand for the hours, the hand for the minutes, those are both gold, but this is a blackened titanium hand for the deadbeat. In order to make it as large and arcing as it is, cover the whole dial, and use as little energy as possible, that one hand is made of titanium. Now we have a deadbeat second mechanism, and the way this works is you have the center wheel, which is anchored, as you can see, get very close, by a tiny little pinion with a hook that is forever climbing one while driven by another. and that little hook slips once per second to enable the deadbeat mechanism. And so the idea here is that because Ferdinand Berthoud back in his day took on many apprentices, training the next generation, Ferdinand Berthoud, the company, engaged with an advanced student at the University of Neuchâtel, and essentially his senior thesis or his graduation project was to conduct vast research and development to develop a deadbeat second mechanism that would allow this watch to retain its chronometer status, as these systems are rarely compatible with high-end chronometry. They cause ebbs and flows of torque, and they really need their own separate train structure to avoid affecting the timing. And this watch is a chronometer, COSC certified, and you get the extended timing card when you buy the watch, which shows that not only did this watch get the certification, but it blew past the bare minimum standards. You can also take a look at this dial, engraved, beveled, and then media blasted. Take a look at this little bridge. You can see that its surfaces are media blasted and then its edges are beveled. This dial, by my count, contains at least 13 sharp interior angles where bevels meet in sharp creases. When people ask me who has the best finishing in the business, I usually name about 5 companies that I consider to be peers in quality but distinct in style. If you force me to really narrow it down to 2 or 3, Ferdinand Berthoud, the reconstituted version of the company, would be in those elite cadre company. Taking a look at the back, you can sort of see why. Now, this is the core of the movement that won the GPHG Aiguille d'Or back in 2016, essentially best pictures at the Oscars of watchmaking. The unique elements here are the regulator display, the deadbeat, and the open dial, as well as the movement of the power reserve indicator to the case back. Despite the power reserve being under siege from the energy-intensive deadbeat, it's still a 53-hour manual wind. The tourbillon is enormous. It's a 3 Hertz free-sprung balance with a Phillips terminal curve. That's a type of overcoil designed to ensure that in every position the watch keeps consistent time. The balance is huge, and you can see the eccentric masses that are used to make all of the adjustments. An extraordinary timekeeper. It's free-sprung with a huge balance, the Phillips overcoil, a enormous tourbillon structure, almost the size of what you'd find on a clock, and then it's all driven by the barrel, fusee, and chain arrangement, which ensures that for 53 hours, constant force reaches the escapement. So the way this works is, as you wind it, the chain moves from the barrel to the fusee. There's a differential to prevent interruption of torque to the escapement when you are actively winding the watch. That's what this differential is for. Now you can also see we got the barrel right here, and it has a Maltese cross stopworks that has 2 purposes. The first, to stop the watch when it no longer has the energy to keep accurate time. It's believed, and it has long been believed, that a stopped watch is easier to spot than a watch that is slowly losing time. So rather than run late and miss an important engagement or a train or a flight, you will know your watch is stopped, and then you will rewind it and correct the time. Now, it is also here to prevent you from overwinding the watch and stressing that tiny chain. The fusee and chain system works like bicycle gears. As the mainspring loses its force, the fusee, it's a hyperboloid, so it's like a sort of a cone. I would say it's like a cone that's curved, and it has these little tracks, and the chain migrates up those tracks, so when the mainspring has the least force, it's pulling the largest diameter of the fusee to gain mechanical advantage back, and then the fusee is geared directly to the escapement and then the hands. So for 53 hours, constant force. 60 joules, you can see this movement is beautifully decorated. We have bevels, interior angles, satination, media blast, mirror polished steel, German silver, brass. We have beveling that concludes in inward angles. We have beveling that continues to outward points. You could see some of the little details here, like the different depths and planes of finish. Look at this mirror polished bridge for the tourbillon. You see how the edge has been faceted to have 2 corners, not just one, and that on both sides, also with a corresponding structure to the adjacent bridge. This is the kind of finishing you get on the best in the world. Look at this tourbillon and look at the details. Substructures are finished as well as superstructures, something rarely committed. The movement is huge and properly suited to this case. At 37.3 millimeters, it fully fills out this case back, as Ferdinand Berthoud, as part of Chopin, is a complete manufacturer. Water resistant to 30 meters, which is dress watch standard. Don't worry about that. You're never going to submerge it. It is beautiful in every way. Intellectual beauty, aesthetic beauty, engineering beauty. artisanal beauty. It exhausts the superlatives, from its solid gold dial to its intricate complications to its absolute rarity as one of only a handful in existence. This watch is the best. Are there others that are its equal, co-equal best? Yes, but I can tell you this. When I first encountered the movement you see here in the octagonal FB1 case at the SCHH, it was the first time I ever thought, you know what, from a bank account standpoint, it might be worth emptying the tank to own that thing. And when I see this watch, I still sort of get that feeling. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.